It's 6:47 a.m. You're barefoot, your hair is messy, and you're still in your pajamas, holding a credit card loaded with $1 billion. No taxes, no tricks, just spend it all before tomorrow or lose everything you bought. You felt confident, you felt ready. You opened a delivery app and ordered from 5 restaurants at once, tipped 200% on every order, handed the pizza guy a $1,000 bonus, and told him to buy his mom something nice. You called a personal shopper who started clearing luxury racks over video call. You booked a full spa team to your apartment, masseuse, facialist, manicurist. You walked into a mall and grabbed a PS5, an Xbox, 50 games for each, a VR headset, a racing rig, an 8K television. You strolled into the Apple Store and said, "Give me one of everything." Walked out 10 minutes later with the newest iPhone, iPad, AirPods Max, Apple Watch, a maxed out MacBook Pro, and a Vision Pro just because it was there. You hired a decorator to gut your apartment while you were gone. You booked the most expensive hotel suite in the city. You felt like a god. And then you checked the receipt. 2.4 million. You burned through every consumer fantasy in your head. And the needle barely moved. 17 hours still on the clock. $997.5 million sitting there, untouched, almost mocking you. This is the part nobody talks about. You've spent your whole life building a mental shopping list for the day you finally get rich, and that list is worthless. It's not even a plan, it's a toy catalog. The phones, the watches, the gadgets, the spa days, the designer clothes, all of it combined, doesn't even dent the surface of serious money. You could repeat that entire morning 100 times over, and still have hundreds of millions left to burn. Your imagination literally cannot spend fast enough, because it was trained on the wrong scale. And look, this isn't just a thought experiment. Scroll through any comment section on a video like this. People say things like, "I'd pay off my $31,000 student loan first." Someone else says they'd buy a little Bitcoin, maybe some crypto. Another person wants an RV park. These are real answers from real people. And every single one of them would leave you staring at $999 million with no idea what to do next. The gap between what you think wealth looks like and what $1 billion actually demands is so wide that most people can't even see the other side. So if your plan for serious money starts with delivery apps and Apple stores, you don't have a plan. You have a daydream dressed up as ambition, and the uncomfortable question you need to sit with is this: if you can't even imagine how to deploy $1 billion in 24 hours, what makes you think you're building the kind of thinking that could ever attract it? So let's talk about what just happened to your hands. Before you even stepped outside, you strapped $4.4 million to your body. A Patek Philippe Nautilus, $289,000. An Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore, $175,000. A Richard Mille RM11, $612,000. Then you added a Cartier turquoise and diamond tiara at $350,000 and a 35-carat diamond ring pulled from a historic auction block for $3 million flat. You decorated yourself like a museum exhibit and moved on without a second thought. Now run those numbers against something real. The median American worker brings home roughly $60,000 a year before the government, insurance, and rent take their cut. After all that, maybe $42,000 actually lands in their account. That means the Patek on your wrist, just that one watch, costs almost 7 full years of someone's take-home pay. And the diamond ring, the one you'll probably toss in a drawer and forget about, would take a person working full-time, with 0 vacations over 71 years to earn. An entire human life, start to finish. And it still wouldn't cover one item you bought before breakfast. Then came the cars. You walked into an Audi dealership and drove off in a top-spec RS7 without negotiating a single dollar, took it straight to BMW for an i8, rolled that into Mercedes for a fully loaded G-Wagon, Then Tesla, where you grabbed a Model S, a 3, an X, a Y, and a Cybertruck, all paid in full. All programmed to self-drive themselves to Porsche, where you stacked 5 more on top. The keys started piling up like poker chips, except every single chip on that table is worth more than someone else's yearly salary. And here's the part that should actually bother you. You can't drive them, you physically can't sit in all those cars. So you hired a chauffeur service and a logistics crew just to babysit vehicles you'll never touch again. Then you got impatient, traffic felt beneath you, so you booked a same-day helicopter across the city, and mid-flight, floating above the gridlock where normal people sit, burning gas on their way to jobs that pay them a fraction of what you just spent on a watch strap. You called your hotel concierge and said something wild. Here's $1 million, spend it in the next 60 minutes. Don't even tell me what it's for. 1,060 minutes. Meanwhile, someone watching this right now is staring at $31,000 in student debt and doing mental math on whether they can cover both groceries and their loan payment this month. That's not a hypothetical, that's a real person in the comments. So the concierge delivered. You landed on the hotel rooftop, like something out of a Bond sequence. A private chef was already plating Kobe beef, beluga caviar, and sushi wrapped in gold leaf seaweed. A world-famous DJ played a 30-minute set just for you, while you ate ice cream that costs more than most people's monthly rent. Every second of that experience was engineered, curated, and priced at a level that most working families won't touch across 3 entire generations, and that's the number nobody wants to confront. It's not the billion, it's the speed. You torched more wealth between a helicopter ride and dessert than entire neighborhoods will generate in a decade. So before the next round of spending kicks in, ask yourself honestly and maybe drop your answer below. If you had this kind of velocity, would you even know when to stop? Here's something nobody in that Sotheby's auction room is going to tell you. When your wire transfer for $42 million clears, and every head turns in disbelief. You feel like the most powerful person in the building, but you're not. The house that facilitated that sale just pocketed its commission without owning a single painting. The consigners walked away with generational liquidity, and you, the person who just outbid everyone on a Picasso, a Banksy, and a blank canvas some guy had the audacity to price at $1 million. You're now the proud owner of assets that require climate-controlled storage, insurance premiums, and authentication fees for the rest of their existence. You spent $42 million to become a cost center. Now rewind the tape a few hours, and it set you back $78 million. Feels like a throne in the sky. But here's what that purchase actually did. It transferred $78 million from your account into the pockets of Gulfstream's parent company General Dynamics, a defense contractor whose shareholders just got a little richer because you wanted legroom. You also chartered an Airbus ACJ319neo for your entourage, another $1.6 million round trip, flowing straight into the leasing company's quarterly earnings. 2 planes in the air, and you don't own the sky, you just rented the illusion of it. On the ground in Dubai, the pattern accelerates. You hand $12 million to a luxury car dealership for a fleet of supercars. A Bugatti for your assistant, a Pagani for your bodyguard, a Lamborghini for yourself. Feels generous, feels powerful. But the dealership owner who smiled and shook your hand, he isn't driving any of those cars home tonight. He doesn't need to, he owns the building. The franchise license, the relationship with the manufacturer. You gave him $12 million in liquid capital and walked away with 5 machines that lose value the moment they touch asphalt. Every single transaction today has followed the same invisible rule. The person selling never needs what you're buying. They need what you're giving up, which is cash, the only universally liquid asset on Earth. That $4 million diamond necklace you grabbed on impulse at the private jewelry auction, you don't even know who it's for. But De Beers knows exactly who it's for. It's for their quarterly report. The $30 million penthouse at the top of the Burj Khalifa, paid in full. Then another $5 million to furnish it overnight, with teams flown in from Milan and Tokyo. You now own a unit in a building controlled by Emaar Properties. They set the service charges, they control the lobby, the elevators, the brand. You bought a box in someone else's tower and called it yours. This is the part of the spending fantasy that nobody wants to examine. Every dollar you deployed today landed in the hands of someone who already owned the infrastructure, the platform, the distribution channel, or the land beneath your feet. You moved fast, you moved loud. You rented a Formula One track and hired pro drivers to make you feel elite for an afternoon. But velocity isn't the same thing as direction. The system you're feeding was built long before you showed up with your billion-dollar credit card, and it will keep running long after your balance hits zero. The question worth sitting with isn't whether you could spend $1 billion in a day. It's this: if every purchase you made today quietly enriched someone who was already rich, then who exactly was this day designed for, you or them? It's 4 a.m, you own a hospital, a football club, 26 properties scattered across 6 continents, a Gulf Stream that still smells like new leather, and a penthouse in Dubai where the champagne glasses aren't even cleared yet. Your tracker reads $593 million spent, and you're sitting there on a plane you bought 6 hours ago, realizing you have no idea where the next 400 million should go. That silence right there, that blank stare at a screen full of zeros, tells you more about money than any spending fantasy ever could. You ran out of ideas at 200 million. Everything after that was panic buying. Hiring 26 negotiators, throwing them on private jets to 6 continents, wiring 5 million here, 80 million there, for a hospital you'll visit maybe once. That isn't strategy, that's a guy throwing cash at a wall because the clock is running out and he has no system. And that's exactly how most people handle money in real life. Not at the billion-dollar scale, obviously, but the pattern is identical. Paycheck lands, and within 72 hours, half of it has evaporated into subscriptions you forgot about, delivery orders you didn't need, and a new pair of something that's already sitting in your closet, or with the tags still on. No tracker, no pause, no friction between the impulse and the tap of a card. So here's the move, and I need you to hear how boring it is before you dismiss it completely. Every single Sunday for 10 minutes, you open your bank statement from the past 7 days. You don't budget, you don't plan, you don't set goals. You just read it line by line, every transaction. You look at each one and you ask yourself one question. If I had to buy this again right now today, would I? You don't cancel anything, you don't punish yourself. You just read and answer honestly. It sounds like nothing, like the advice you'd skip past in a self-help book, but here's what it actually does. It puts a mirror between you and your spending that didn't exist before. Right now, your money leaves your account and disappears into a void. You feel the dopamine of buying, but you never feel the weight of what you bought. That 10-minute read forces your brain to experience every purchase again, without the excitement that justified it in the first place. And after 3 or 4 Sundays, something shifts. You start noticing patterns you couldn't see before. The Wednesday night impulse orders. The Friday afternoon upgrade you always regret by Monday. The monthly charge for a service you used once in January. The guy in our story figured this out at 4 in the morning, with $400 million still unspent. Every purchase was a reaction, not a decision. And when he finally paused, when he finally looked at the tracker and actually read what was on it, that's when the entire day changed direction. You don't need $1 billion to have that moment. You need 10 minutes and a bank statement. The question is whether you'll actually sit down this Sunday and do it, or whether you'll keep spending the way you always have and wonder 6 months from now where it all went. Here's the thing nobody mentions after the fantasy fades. When the clock hit its final minutes, and you had 7 million left out of $1 billion, your gut didn't reach for another sports car or a second island. It reached for people, 1 million to the friend who believed in you when your bank account was empty, 2 million to your parents with a note that said, "Stop working." 3 million to a school in your hometown. So some kid you'll never meet gets a better shot at life. The last scraps went to an animal shelter. Not a single dollar of that final stretch circled back to you. That reflex is the only honest data point this entire thought experiment produced. Because a $1 billion fantasy doesn't measure your taste or your ambition, it measures the distance between what you claim matters and where your actual money lands on an ordinary Wednesday. And right now in your real life, that distance is probably brutal. You erased 50 million in medical debt for strangers inside a daydream, but you've been ignoring a $400 bill sitting on your kitchen counter for 2 weeks. You funded a $100 million scholarship endowment in your head, but you haven't put a single dollar into your own emergency fund this month. You retired your parents with one wire transfer in a fantasy, but you haven't picked up the phone to call them in 3 weeks. That's the gap, and no windfall on earth closes it, only repetition does. So here's the smallest move I can give you, and I genuinely mean the smallest. Tonight, before you fall asleep, open your banking app, set one automatic transfer, $20, $50, whatever doesn't make you flinch. Route it to the thing that stops the bleeding first. A debt payment, an emergency cushion, a basic index fund. Do it before you put your phone down, not tomorrow morning, not next Monday, tonight. The compound effect doesn't care about the size of the deposit, it only cares that the deposit exists and that it repeats. Now forget the billion, forget the fantasy entirely. If someone wired 10,000 real dollars into your account tonight and told you whatever you did with it would compound untouched for 20 years, what is your very first move? Tell me below because I want to see if your answer matches what your instincts already chose when the money was fake and the clock was almost out.